The spontaneous protest this past week in Kano and Minna in Niger State over the skyrocketing cost of living in Nigeria may have been put down with minimum of force as the police hierarchy presented it, but will likely continue to signpost a worrying milestone in the nation's journey to food sufficiency and sustainability. Some public commentators have called those protests a manifestation of the people's dissatisfaction with government's handling of the fallout of President Tinubu's decision to remove fuel subsidy on a whim. For the All Progressives Congress, which is the president's political party, however, that demonstration of public anger in the two northern cities was all state-managed by the opposition in their bid to paint the Tinubu administration in a bad light. We're now being joined by Professor Ussiju Medaner, who incidentally is a former National Organizing Secretary of the APC part, for his thoughts on this matter, as well as the food worsening shortages, Naira devaluation, and state of the nation in general. It's good to have you on the morning show. All right, then, Professor.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning. So, Professor, if we can just go straight into it. Now, we are seeing this protest, of course, in Minna, even in Lagos State. But what is interesting is the fact that there is this conversation about whether these protests are being state-managed by opposition parties. Now, at this point in time, shouldn't the focus of the government under President Tinubu be to implement to alleviate the burden of high living costs and food shortages in the country, as opposed to blame gaming who is responsible for the protests to begin with?
Thank you for having me once again. I'm optimistic, and I think the government will do the needful. Let me just put it, I think we should provide solution. All hands should be on deck. Actually, I have seen protests in Europe by farmers, by some of this because of cost of living. What we should do is to come and look at ways out of our own problem within our own country. Some of the problem is listening meetings to listen to people, to listen to stakeholders, to listen to a lot of people, academia and what have you, so that we can have a solution. It's not just government alone. There are a lot of things. If you look at it, we have 8,809 wards in this country, and I think we should have what is called economic intelligence to know what is really happening there. From the little things I gathered in Minna, the protest was about people buying raw material, that is maize and what have you, some of the companies that produce biscuits and what have you. And the people were looking at it, oh, they are taking the food all to their own side. And I think the protest started from that. So in this case, the government will look at those local production companies to sit down with them. The one who grow in the country, it will be for the consumption of the people. Then they will look elsewhere to bring raw materials, and they will have some waivers so that the price can come down. Look at now Dangote and those that produce sugar and those staple foods that we eat, actually to sit down with them to say, oh, now we can give you this, and so that the price can just go, we can have reduction in prices, a regulated price. Then the next thing, we have a lot of, let's say, issue of researches in our academic institutions. What do we do with them? Get them, do listening meetings, because if students are studying maybe economics, the lecturers are giving them researches on their projects. Then what do we tap from there? So a lot of things, our hands should be on deck. It's not just, yes, constructive criticism is good, but we have to now come together because the country belongs to all of us. Whatever happened in the country happened to me and you and everyone in the country. So we should think deeply. We should think over 1 million times in a second to provide solutions. One of the solutions, you have seen it. I think last Wednesday, I wrote an article on the state of the nation, what do we do? And one of the solutions I made is for the diaspora remittance. Any diaspora remittance should be made to be in naira. That is, when you are now receiving the money should be in naira. We have dollarized the economy. You see even school fees in the country. You see some people, some of the schools, they are collecting dollars. So all these things, we should regulate all these issues. And I think if things are done, all our hands are on deck, we'll be able to solve the problem, we'll surmount it. There is a lot of economic downtown in the world, but we know what is happening in our country, and this is what will focus our attention on, how to solve the problems.
All right, Prof, I appreciate, how you've set the tone for the conversation, giving advice to government. But how much of this do you think that the government is considering from what many Nigerians are hearing and their understanding of what cabinet members are saying is basically to say that the reforms are successful and that people should continue to endure. But you and I know, sir, that food inflation rose to 33.9% on a year-on-year basis as at last year, as at December, which was 10.18 percentage points higher compared to the previous December. It simply shows how things are tight and difficult, making many Nigerians to struggle. So when you give advice to government, how much of it do you think that the government can actually work on low-hanging fruits that can bring immediate succor to Nigerians? Otherwise, what happened in Niger and in Kano State will not be limited to 2 states of the Federation, because what they are feeling there, practically every part of Nigeria is feeling it. Do you think that this government, therefore, is listening enough and showing understanding that they are ready to correct the situation?
Government has responded by directing the Grey Reserve to be given, I think, to people to bring some cushion. But we have to go larger than that. What I suggested before, I said we should look at now sugar. If you look at the price of sugar, fasting is around the corner, and sugar is one of the components that is being used during the fasting period, and some commodities provisions. And most of them, they are made in Nigeria. So you sit down with these manufacturers to see how you can waive something so that the price can just be affordable. That is one of the solutions that I think. Secondly, you now think of bringing everyone on board. The governors are part of Economic Council. You sit down with them. How are we going to tackle issues in your place? Then the budget is just 1 month or 2 months old. And I think almost 9 trillion was made for capital, let's say developmental capital. What I call developmental capital, something that will affect or trickle down to the masses, is to now have the M&E instrument to work, to monitor the budget and evaluate it so that it can have effect. Then you will block leakages, because that is what is happening. One will have a very good and robust budget. At the end of it, we may not likely implement that budget successfully. So budget implementation should be one of the priority that we should look at it. We should put elements of blocking leakages and monitoring those allocations very, very well, so that the people can have something. Then if you go to the agri section, you see the irrigation. We should revive our irrigation farming so that we can have food security in the country. This is very, very serious. So sometimes if something happens, it will wake the government. When the government wakes up, is to do the needful. So now you have seen all hands are on deck. There are consultations. I think even yesterday, some stakeholders sat down, meet, and they discuss. They are going to see the president. I happen to be in one of the meetings that is listening meeting too. And after the meeting, I am a member of this party, and definitely we are going to see the president and say, look, this is this, we have to help him. Because as a member of a party, you don't have to hold an office. You have to now provide solution to the problems in the country. And I appreciate some of the criticism coming from opposition too. Look, this is what is happening, this is what is happening, and government is responding. So that is how government should run. So I think by God's grace, we are going to surmount this issue, and it is going to be things of the past.
Okay, so let me ask you this now. As the former National Organizing Secretary of the APC, how do you assess the chairman of the Nigeria Governors Forum, Governor Abdulrazak's assertion that food in Nigeria remains the most affordable in West Africa amidst rising concerns over the cost of living? The governor further mentioned that Nigeria's neighboring countries rely on Nigerian agricultural produce for trade. Now, how do you reckon that the Tinubu administration can leverage this dependence to bolster the nation's economy and ensure food security? Because it doesn't make sense that there are people relying on us for food when even within the nation there are people who are going hungry.
Actually, let me make one correction before I answer your question. I was the immediate director organization, not organizing secretary. Let me now respond to your question. Actually, comparatively, when you look at, let's just even take Niger, bottle of water is 500 naira. Well, it's not that in Nigeria, but that is not the case. Actually, when you respond, you think global and act locally. And I think the governor was trying to give those instances so that people can now think that, oh, there is a global kind of downturn, the economy worldwide is having problem. But the solutions, we have to provide solution to all our problems. Be it security, insecurity, be it whatever problem we have. That's why we are in government. That's why we must do something to make sure that everything goes well. Because we campaign, we have gone round, we contributed a lot to this campaign. Our faces were on your screen. We've been talking, we were with the opposition. We convinced people to vote. And it's not for us to fold our hands and say, oh, since there's some people who are in government, we should fold our hands so that everything will collapse. If the building collapses, will collapse with all of us, even you in that studio. So you should think even you is a patriotic call for all and sundry to come up with solutions. If you have solution, say it. Don't think that the person in the office has a solution. You that you're there, you have solutions too. If you think that this can work, we can just give it so that we can save our country.
Do you think, therefore, that part of the solution should be to return to the provision of the Price Control Act of 2014, which clearly stipulates that there should be measures to regulate and control prices in Nigeria, and that there ought to be a price control board? Do you think that that will be part of what we need in Nigeria of today, rather than leave everything to market forces as this government seems to believe in?
My brother, I think the last paragraph of my article was about price control. By the time you engage those producers, manufacturers, and all the waivers we are giving, all the whatever subsidy, whatever this thing government will give, definitely you have to have a price control. Because you have now waived government taxes, whatever government was trying to give, you have given it to these producers. So definitely you have to now have price control so that people can just get those goods at regulated prices. I am 100% of that opinion. Definitely we have to now revisit it and see how we can do things. Because let me just tell you, people hold a lot of foods in their distance. Some bought sugar at the rate of 30,000. They are holding it and they are waiting for it to reach even 200,000. So by the time you have this, you have the sugar in the market and you have the regulated price sugar in the market, you force them to bring it out. It's just the same thing with the people that are holding dollars. By the time the dollar is coming out, they will rush and bring it out. So definitely, if you have these solutions, you force those bad elements or bad people that are trying to muzzle the economy. So I am of that opinion.
Okay, so let's talk about this call for the transfer of agricultural programs from the Central Bank of Nigeria to the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. Do you see benefits in such a transition and how it can improve agricultural productivity? The Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, Abubakar Kari, also rolled out adjusted guidelines for the second phase of the dry season farming program. Is there any chance that these guidelines would address the challenges that were encountered during the first phase and ensure the program's success in a bid to elevate this living cost, the cost of living in Nigeria?
Definitely, it hasn't worked in the past because you have people that were not farmers. They are paper farmers, and they got some kind of grant from the CBN, and it wasn't utilized. I happens to be one of the consultants, or a leading consultant in the National Senate Committee on Water Resources. What we are looking at now is to look at those River Basins Act to amend them to be at par with modernity. Actually, to see how we can just even investors to come into it is very, very germane. But we cannot just go there without having a data. Data is very essential. Otherwise, we might be doing things, and you have to block leakages. What the leakages I'm saying, if you have the data of these farmers, you'll be able to interact with them. You'll be able to do whatever. You'll be able to provide subsidies to these farmers. But if you don't have data, somebody will go and write names and bring it and just benefit from it and will not see the food produce. So you have to block leakages. It has to go to the people that will implement it. The CBN has done it, but the anchor borrowers, it was some people that just pocketed the money. So right now, since that is transferring, we must embark upon getting data, accurate data of our farmers, so that our farmers can benefit, and we have record of who and who we gave loan, and if we want to take the loan, we have to do some things. I want to say something again. The loan that was given to people during COVID-19, this is not the right time to now take the loan from these people, because if you look at the situation in the country, I think the government should give a little time to those people, because the people are struggling for now. So you have to now take time. Since that you have their data, you have their this thing, it will cripple them down. So there are some things that actually you have to be sensitive in terms of maybe in trying to do it, or in trying to implement some of your ideas or some of your policies. So I think I agree that it has to go back to the Ministry of Agri, but the right mechanism must be put in place. Otherwise, we may have the same thing that happened in the CBN's policies. So that is a very right step in the right direction, so that the ministry can be held accountable and they will be responsible for whatever policy.
All right, Prof, the governors of all the states in the Federation are unanimously calling on the president to urgently address the issue of inflation, food security, and all the issues bedeviling Nigerians. But what other Nigerians are also saying is that, what about the governors themselves? What about the second and the third, tier of government, the states, the local government?
Yes,
more money is coming to them at this point, but they're calling on the president, to address issues. What are they expected to do at this time that everybody is, basically, crying over the situation in Nigeria? What specific things will you say to them, especially the governors, now that we are almost on the edge?
In my prelude, I think I made mention of governors. They are part of what? Economic Councils, Council of States. They are part of that. Secondly, I made mention of we have 8,809 wards in the country. That means I'm talking about even the councillors to be involved. So all hands must be on deck. What do you do in your state? Because we have peculiar problems. Each state has its own peculiar problems. So you have those things in your state. What do you think will be the solution? By the time they aggregate those issues, they aggregate the solutions, they will come to federal government. By the time they go back, they have to go back to their local government, the 774 local governments we have in the country, then trickle down to the 8,809 wards in the country. Identify people. There are sincere people in the country. You involve even faith-based organization in trying to solve the problem, because each and every cleric will be somehow ashamed to take the money from, and pocket it. So you involve the people, but you cannot solve problem without data. You should get the data of the beneficiaries, so that you will be accountable whenever you want to account for something. You have evidence. Whenever you want to reach the people, you have the data. So we should embark on that to know the real people, the real indigent people that require this help. Otherwise, some people will stay somewhere and take this money, and the government will be blamed again and again and again. And the government will be trying to solve the problem. They may not solve the problem because they have not blocked leakages. Leakages must be blocked before any other thing.
It's interesting, you're talking about data and even fact finding and fact checking. The APC, when we talk about this protest, labeled it, and I'd mentioned it earlier, stage managed by the opposition. I wonder what evidence or factors support this assertion, and how do you, in the grand scale of things, how do you respond to the criticisms that the APC's governance approach lacks inclusivity and fails to adequately address the needs of all segments of society? Because it really does seem as if there's a disconnect between the party and the people that they have sworn to govern and protect.
You really want to drag me to politicizing the issue. I try to just be a solutionist, not to politicize it. Let me tell you, I've been involved in research on campaign and what have you. Any demonstration, any rally, you see placards, you see t-shirts, you see there is someone behind it, because nobody will just go to his house and print a t-shirt and be on the street. The one in Mina, I told you from my little research, because if you do research, you know, the people were stopping those companies that are buying raw materials, maybe maize, sorghum, and what have you, for their production. But the rest, yesterday in Abuja, almost millions of people came for Maulud here in Abuja. You have not seen them with this t-shirt and what have you. And if you look at them, some were trekking. I'm not using this to justify, the situation in the country did not require government response. It required government response. But you have to look at it. I think the demonstration should have started right there in Abuja. And the vice president was right there. And those that did the meeting of listening were part of the organizers of that very Maulud this thing. They are going to see the president to tell him, look, this is the solution and this is the problem we have from our people. And we need immediate solution to this problem. So, actually, government must respond to every issue that is raised, germane issues, constructive criticism, and the media too should help and investigate real protests and those protests that are stage managed. I told you that of Mina. If you see, none of them was wearing anything. And the trigger was what I said. The Kano, I have seen even yesterday, I have seen some people, the video. So, government must respond either stage manage or not stage manage. Sometimes your critics put you on your toes. You listen to them more than the sycophants. And this is what government should be doing. You should not allow, once you have an office or you are occupying an office, you should try to shut the door for those sycophants. You should listen more to what is happening, who is criticizing you, because he's trying to put you on the right direction.
All right, Prof.
And all of us must contribute.
Okay, very well said. But then, what will be your advice to the federal government this time, not to the governors and to the other layers of government, now that IMF is saying clearly to the president and to the federal government, in its entirety, to totally and completely phase out fuel and electricity subsidy? And they are claiming that the president, the federal government has partially reversed fuel subsidy removal. And they're saying that for progress, total progress to occur, there must be a complete phase out of subsidies. And now Prof, that part of the problem, if not, a good chunk of the problem that we are experiencing is because of the announcement of the president on May 29th when he was inaugurated, removing as fuel subsidy, when he said fuel subsidy is gone. Now IMF is saying that go the old hog and don't stop with fuel, go to the other one of electricity, which the minister, Abayo Adelabu, has been campaigning for. Do you think that if this is done, Nigeria can survive it? What would be your advice to the federal government?
My brother, we have to think this way. The government cannot remove those subsidies. Even this subsidy that was removed, it was taken to the National Assembly. You have 109 senators and 360 House of Representatives members. They must consent to anything. It happened that time. You had the northern senators. They cried on the budget, 58 of them. So these are representative of the people. I don't think if I said something in the beginning, we think global and act locally. IMF can come with any policy. We have to look at it critically, horizontally, and vertically to look at what will be for us, not just what IMF said. This is their thinking. We have experts in the country. And in this National Assembly, don't think that you have people that were not experts. People actually pay their due in their respective careers, and some of them, they are in the National Assembly, and they have people ghosts behind them. They involve consultants. They will look at it critically. So whatever, even solution to this problem, I said now, the northern senators analyze the budget to look at how they will help the president, if there is any pardon, if there is any anomalies, so that they can go and see the president to tell him, oh, this and this and this and this is this. Definitely. That's why I say all hands must be on deck. Even you, the journalists, you can provide solution, not just to interrogate the issue. You can come up with solution. Say, this is what you think can work for the country, not just the opinion of others. Sometimes I have seen some of you that actually will sit down after a program, will provide solution to some of the problems. And I think this is what we should be doing. We talk more of problems than providing solutions. I am of the opinion that we should provide solutions to each and every problem. We all have our respective families. If there is problem in our families, we'll look at solution to solve the problem. So that is what we should do, the responsibility to the larger society. Each and every one of us is a keeper of one another. So we should think how to solve any problem, how to make our country work.
All right, then. Thank you so much, Professor Ussiju Medaner. We appreciate your time and your analysis here on The Morning Show.
Thank you for having me.